What's up, YouTube? Fat Tony Gaming coming at you today with a Genesis Fenrir premium format deck profile. Genesis is a clan that I've played since original booster set 14, when we got Minerva and stuff like that, and I always liked the whole play style of using your soul as your main resource as opposed to things like Counterblast and stuff like that, whereas Counterblast was more of a supplemental resource, kind of reversing the roles. I've just been playing the deck ever since. I've been playing Fenrir since he originally came out in Booster Set 4, G Booster Set 4, I'm sorry. And that was a really fun deck. I had he wasn't really considered that great back then, but I had this really crazy deck that played like a lot of cards it played the grade 3 from the Fighters collection that nobody ever played, and it was insane because you hit big numbers and you also were able to get a bunch of card advantage and stack your deck, and it was cool. And that's one thing I liked. Once Fenrir got his Revelation support, I had a deck when we got the broken stand trigger that is Taro, and just a deck that just basically outgrinds your opponent in value while also applying pressure with multi-attacks, and that's basically the focus of this deck. But with the introduction of V Genesis, we got some really good value and setup cards that help the deck immensely. So enough of my rambling. Let me just get right into the deck profile here. So as you can see, it is a Fenrir deck. The starter that we use is Fetter of Levitating. For those of you guys who don't know what he does, he has the Forerunner ability, so when you ride over it, you can call it to a rearguard circle, and then he has a Generation Break 1 act skill on rearguard circle. Put him into your soul as the cost. Choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn, it gets auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. When your card not named Fetter of Levitating is put into the drop zone from soul, call that card to rearguard circle. So this lets you trade him in for other utility cards. And so, while you might be thinking, well, why would you bother doing that? A lot of your cards have abilities that trigger that when they're on place and gain you card advantage or resources. So that helps out a lot. And on top of that, he also, just being able to push him into soul for free when you're in Generation Break 1 can help you hit, if you need that one more soul to get things rolling, can also help a lot. And just being able to build up a better field is really useful. Now, moving on to the grade 3s, obviously the main grade 3 is the man himself, Mythic Beast Fenrir. So, for those of you who don't know what he does, he has two abilities. His first one is a auto skill on Vanguard Circle, as Generation Break 2. Soul Blast 3, when he attacks a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, until end of battle, this unit gets critical +1, and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from their hand to Guardian Circle. Back in the day, that used to be really good. Unfortunately, that ability is a bit nerfed now that we have grade 0 PGs, so you don't have that extra pressure anymore. And also, having G Guardians now also hurt that. And it's good in a pinch, but it's not really the relevant text on his card. The relevant ability is the second one, which is Auto Vanguard Circle during your turn when your G unit stride. Soul Charge 3. Choose up to one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn it gets auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. Counterblast 1, when your card is put into the drop zone from your soul, you may pay the cost. If you do, call that card to Rearguard Circle. So it's similar to the ability that Lading gives, except it costs a Counterblast, and you get it every single turn. So it's nice. Again, it helps you build field from your soul, which is good. Helps you reserve cards in your hand to defend yourself, but at the same time, like I said, you have a lot of abilities that trigger when they're placed, and this also places them. Now, one thing to note, because of the rule changes for once per turn, you can pick and choose when you want to call the cards that you Soul Blast. So, say you don't get the card, you don't have the card that you want currently in Soul, but you have ways to get it into Soul, but you have to Soul Blast to do that. Say for an ability that's like Soul Blast, and then you can use other skills to Soul Charge. You can pick and choose. And because it's an auto skill, and you have abilities that Soul Blast during the battle phase, this can also help allow you to get extra attacks out. Being able to call that card mid-battle phase is very powerful, and can lead to some interesting situations. So, he's your primary ride target. The deck does kind of waver a bit if you don't ride him. but it doesn't immediately die. Now to our second grade 3, which we're only running 7 in this deck, because we needed space for our grade 2s. 3 of the new grade 3 from Answer of Truth, Eternal Goddess Iwanagi Hime. So she's a grade 3 with the Force ability, or with the Force gift, I should say. And her skill is an axe skill on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle once per turn. Cost Soul Blast 3, draw a card, put a card from your hand into your soul, and increase this unit's power by 2 times the shield of the card put into your soul until end of turn. Now, if you're going first, like, riding her is great because getting the Force marker is amazing in this deck because you have multi-attack options. However, generally you don't want to be riding her, you want to be calling her to Rearguard because her ability allows you to get cards from your hand into soul, which is something that this deck desperately needed, which the new V-Era support helps a lot. Like, if you draw into your cards that you want in your soul, having this or one of the grade 2s that I will be getting to actually next, really helps to allow you to set up your soul and get your combo pieces in soul, combo pieces in soul, and help advance your game plan. Again, going first riding her is not terrible, but you generally want to be on Fenrir instead, and she's more of a rearguard option. And also, because she gets big herself, it's really nice because then being able to restand her multiple times is really useful. Alright, so going on to the grade 2s, our first and one of our newest additions, and it's such a good addition, is Battle Maiden Saohime. This Battle Maiden Saohime is a far cry from the original. The original was on hit, counterblast, when it hits a Vanguard, counterblast 1 to Soul Charge 3. That wasn't great. This new one is auto, Rearguard Circle, when placed, cost, counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 2, draw 2 cards, and then put a card from your hand into your soul, and increase this unit's power by that card's shield value until the end of turn. So, first off, it's a hard +1, which is great. It gives you options in hand filtering, which is also really, really great. And again, it's another card that lets you put cards from your hand into soul. And that is something that this deck absolutely wants to be able to do. And not to mention that she can also get pretty decently big herself. On average, she's going to be getting +10, because the main thing you want to put into your soul is Taro, which is a stand trigger, which only has 10k shield because no stands in standard, which means they don't have increased shield values, which is fine because Taro is absurdly broken anyways. So this card is great because it lets you maintain hand while also building field, whether you call it from, if you call it from your hand, if you call it from soul, using something like Lading or Fenrir, and you have the counterblast for it, this is just free card advantage, and you're building up soul. So this card is absolutely great. Now, so our next grade 2 that we run 4 copies of Boulder Fetter Gyol. This was one of Fenrir's Revelation supports. For those of you who don't know what Revelation is, it is an ability that triggers when the unit is placed on the designated circle. And it is, when it's placed, look at the top card of your deck. You may either leave it on top or put it into your soul. And if you put it into soul, choose one of your rear guards and rest it. The resting part is not a cost. It is actually part of the skill resolution. So if you have no standing rear guards, you can still revelate, which, because they're on place effects, this one particularly is on rear guard. So if it's placed on rear guard, you're obviously going to have a standing unit, because you just placed it. But then a second effect is auto, Generation Break 1. Counterblast 1 when this unit is placed on rearguard circle. If you have a Vanguard with Fenrir in its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, until end of turn, this unit gets power plus 4,000 and auto, rearguard circle once per turn. Soul Blast 3, when this unit attacks, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card. So, again, it's more card value. It does buff itself a little bit. Being able to hit 13k is great against other Force clans, which means you hit their base numbers. But on top of that, being able to not only Soul Blast to draw a card, but to Soul Blast during the battle phase is very relevant because this is something that this deck relies on heavily. As I mentioned with Lading and Fenrir, getting those abilities and then being able to Soul Blast during the battle phase to call out new cards allows you to get extra attacks. Obviously, if you call over the card that's attacking, you lose out on the attack, so that's not worth it, but you have things like Taro, which lets you restand during the battle phase as well. So this is another 4 of, because it's just a card you always want to see. And last but not least, and a lot of people might think this is a very strange choice for this deck, but I found it to be incredibly useful. Flying Lapwing, and we're running 4 copies. Flying Lapwing, a lot of people probably remember this from back during the days of Wiseman Loop, but if you don't, it is an 8K grade 2, which is, unfortunate, but his ability kind of makes up for that. So it is Generation Break 1, auto, when it's placed on Vanguard, Rearguard Circle, cost, Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 3, and then if you have a copy in your Soul after the Soul Charge, you draw a card and Countercharge 1. So he is literally just free advantage if you have a Lapwing in Soul, and it's not a difficult thing to do, because you have things like Saohime and Iwanaga Hime to put cards from your hand into Soul. If, say, you have a Lapwing, 2 Lapwings in your hand, and you call Saohime, you use Saohime's skill, and then you shove one of the Lapwings into Soul. Now you have the other Lapwing that you can call out, and you can get his full effect for free. Not to mention just this is also very useful for when you're sitting on Iwanaga Hime if you missed out on your Fenrir ride, because it helps you build up Soul, which is something that's very important. Obviously, the deck lives and dies by its Soul. So that's it for the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s, we have 4 copies of Shacklefetter Gelia. He also has the Revelation skill on Rearguard Circle, but that's really not the relevant text on him. The relevant text on him is his Axe skill, which is in the Soul. Put this card to the bottom of your deck, choose one of your Rearguards, stand it, and it gets power plus 3,000 until end of turn. And then if you have a Vanguard with Fenrir in its card name, Soul Charge 2, choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 3,000 until end of turn. So this was originally designed to help, mitigate the cost of Revelation, which is resting the units, but this just becomes basically a Dimension Creeper with a 6k power buff. And I'm talking old school Dimension Creeper, not VR Dimension Creeper, which we don't have yet. But anyways, I digress. So this card is one of the best cards in the deck because it allows you to buff up your rearguards to ridiculous numbers. This was a key staple in the Wiseman loop back in the day because you could just get your Wiseman to absurdly high numbers. Because of how the effect is worded, you can stack the powers on the same unit because you choose it for 2 different instances. And it's just overall just a good card to accelerate your Soul, but unfortunately it does require you to have a Fenrir Vanguard. So that is the big downside. So you can't use it if you're on Iwanaga Hime to build up Soul. Now up next is a card most people probably have never heard of. Claimer Harry. He is a 6k grade 1 all the way back from G-Booster set 4. And he has an auto skill on Rearguard Circle. Once per turn, Generation Break 1. When your card is put into the drop zone from your Soul, put that card on the bottom of your deck and countercharge 1. So, what this card effectively does is it allows us to recycle triggers and get Counterblast back. That is huge. You can effectively stack your deck with this card. I've done it. I've done it several times, especially back when I was playing my Revelation build. And now, because we have the draw PGs, we actually have the space to run this card again. This just opens you to so many extra lines of play. If your opponent thinks you're out of resources to do things, this card allows you to just go ahead and do them anyways. If you have no Counterblast and you want to trigger something like Fenrir's On-Stride skill, if you have any way to Soul Blast, you have a way to use that, because this card will allow you to do that. Now, what's nice is if you have multiple out on the field, and you can, because of the way the card's worded and because of the way Vanguard effect resolution works with the do as much as you can, say you only Soul Blast 1 card, but you have 2 copies out on the field. You can use both to countercharge. So, because it doesn't say if you do, it just says, and put that card on the bottom of your deck and countercharge 1. There's no cost involved, you just do it, which is really, really nice. So, he is just an incredibly good card to have in the deck. Now, this next grade 1 slot is kind of a flex slot. I'm choosing to run Witch of Cat's Kumin, because, again, going more of the recurring value that the deck can generate with your on-place effects. Being able to like proc Flying Lapwing twice is really solid. Being able to, you know, proc Saohime twice to dig 4 cards deeper into your deck and get the extra cards in your soul is really nice. Of course, it gets a little counterblast intensive, but so for those of you who don't know what this card does, Witch of Cat's-Kumin, this is the V-Era version. Auto Rearguard Circle when placed. Cost counterblast 1 and rest this unit, and return one of your standing rearguards to your hand, or put a card from your drop zone into your soul. So this is really good because you have things like Gelia to restand this card. So if you call it as a booster and then rest it to bounce something and then call it again, if you have a Gelia in soul, you can easily restand it. You almost never use her for the put a card from drop into your soul effect in this deck. It's almost entirely return a card from, you know, return a standing rearguard to your hand. So it's really solid for that. Now, if you don't want to run this, you know, if you find yourself, you know, you don't think that it's worth running Kumin for that, you can run Battle Maiden Mihikari Hime. So for those who don't know what she does, she's from the new set Answer of Truth as well. It's an auto skill. When she's on rearguard, when placed from hand, reduce the next time you Soul Blast by 3 until the end of turn. Now, downside is she has to be placed from hand, which means you have to naturally draw into her, which is not a huge issue, but can be a little bit. As opposed to with Witch of Cat's-Kumin, she can be placed like if you call her from soul. And again, this deck relies heavily on soul blasting to manipulate both the deck and your field and your, you know, drawing cards and stuff like that. So reducing the soul blast might sound good on paper, but it isn't always the best idea. She's better if you find yourself being stuck on Iwanaga Hime, because that's great, because Iwanaga Hime basically turns most of the deck, well, the valid parts of the deck into vanillas. So it's an option if you want to run it. You could also run the new Artemis Grade 1, Bowstring of Heaven and Earth Artemis. For those of you who don't know what it does, it's 2 skills, auto, a rearguard circle when it attacks or boosts. You may put a card from your soul face down as a divine gauge for this unit. And then it has a second skill, which is an act on rearguard circle, counterblast 1, and discard one of this unit's divide engage. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit and retire it. So if you find like you need like a little bit more of control options, this is nice, but it is slow because having the auto be on attack or boost, and then having the second effect be an act skill, means you can't use it until the turn after. But I find myself more preferring to have Kumin, because now that we have things like Claimer Harry, Counterblast isn't such a huge issue anymore, and being able to reproc those on-place effects is very, very useful. Especially since her effect also works in place from soul. So, or well, technically it's placed from drop zone, but and then the last 3 cards we run in our grade 1 lineup is 3 Mythic Beast Skull. So this is the Genesis Stride Fodder, and this also can let you, you know, when placed, you can reveal a grade 3 from your hand and search your deck for a card with Fenrir in the card name and add it to your hand. So that's great if, you know, you have an Iwanaga Hime in your hand, but you obviously want to be on Fenrir. You can call this down to swap out the Iwanaga Hime for a Fenrir. And allow it so your deck can be up and running. So that's it for the grade 1s. On to the triggers. We have 4 of the V-Era Heal. Again, now because we have Claimer Harry, we don't really need to worry about the Countercharge Soul Charge heals. These are great on defense, being 10k power buffs, and then on top of that also just, you know, being good on being 10k power buffs is good on offense as well. We're only running 2 crit triggers, 2 V-Era crits, and that's because we needed the room for the stand triggers and the new V-Era draw PGs. And what's nice with running 2 crit is sometimes you can catch your opponent off guard. They think, oh well, he's only running stands, so I can freely no guard this Vanguard attack, and then, oh look, hey, a crit popped up. Now, like I said, we run 4 of the draw PG. The extra card draw is nice for drawing into your pieces, but mainly this is just to free up the grade 1 space. But again, the card draw doesn't hurt, especially when you can do things like stack draw triggers to get card advantage. And then we run 6 stands, 4 of the Goddess of Sound Sleep Taro and 2 Dreaming Dragon. Now I know I talked about Taro a lot earlier, saying how busted this card is. For those of you who don't know what she does, she has the Revelation ability on Rearguard Circle, which is completely irrelevant. You never want to call this card, and if you find yourself calling this card, you're probably in a bad spot. But her second ability is Auto Generation Break 1. Put this card on the bottom of your deck. When this card is put into your drop zone from your soul, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your rearguards and stand it. Now, that ability can be procced during battle phase if you have a way to Soul Blast during battle phase, and that's why she is so good. You get to restand your rearguards during battle. That lets you get extra attacks. That lets you kill your opponent. That's the primary strategy of this deck, is to just whittle your opponent down, outvalue them, and then just poke them to death. Might not always be the most effective strategy, but it is one that works, especially with this deck, where especially now that you can buff up your rearguards. And then the 2 other stands, Dreaming Dragon, they have an auto ability on Rearguard Circle. It's Generation Break 1. Put this unit on top of your deck is the cost. At the end of your turn, you may pay the cost. If you do, return all cards in your drop zone to your deck and shuffle your deck. Then, if 10 or more cards are returned, draw a card. So this allows you to, this is another way to get triggers and other cards you want back into your deck. Plus, it can be more card advantage if you call it from Soul. But it's just an effective way to make sure that you don't deck out because of how much soul charging the deck does. And the deck can do. You can go through your deck very quickly. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the G-Zone. We have, these are your 2 main first strides here. We have Ultimate Regalia of Crimson Muspel and Beast Slayer Military Deity Tier. So Muspel, we'll go over first, is a act Vanguard Circle once per turn. Choose a face down card from your G-Zone, turn it face up is the cost. Then you may Soul Blast any number of cards. Choose one of your rearguards for each card Soul Blasted, and they get power plus 4,000 until end of turn. If you Soul Blast 3 or more cards, draw a card or countercharge 1. So this is nice as a setup tool for going first. You know, if you stride over Fenrir, put Lading into Soul, now you can help. You have a Soul Blast effect that lets you build up field, build up how you things how you want. Plus, you can draw a card off of it, or if you want, you know, if you had to spend a counterblast to do something, like you had one of the cards you wanted to call, and you spent a counterblast to do that, you can, you know, recur that. But generally, you're using the draw card effect first, and the flip effect helps us set up for one of our other strides. So that's another reason why she's in there. And then Beast Slayer Military Deity Tier is mainly in here. He's your primary stride if you're stuck on Iwanagi Hime, because his effect is act Vanguard Circle once per turn. Soul Blast 3 is the cost. You look at the top card of your deck, and then you put it either on the top or bottom of your deck. And until end of turn, he gets an ability. It says Auto Vanguard Circle. When your drive check reveals a grade 1 or greater card, you may Soul Charge 3. So this helps you build up Soul for if you're sitting on Iwanaga Hime, because you don't have access to that Fenrir Soul Charge ability. And of course, it is a May. So, like, if you feel like it's not necessary, like if you get, say, your first drive check is a grade 1 and you Soul Charge 3, and then your second drive check's another grade 1 or greater and you Soul Charge another 3. If your third one's another non-trigger or non-grade 0, you can just say, like, well, I don't want to burn through too much of my deck, so I'll just elect not to. But generally, you're almost always going to Soul Charge 3, Soul Charge off of his ability to help build up that soul for later. So next up, we run 4 copies of Goddess of Investigation Ishtar. Again, this is, you know, we want to be Soul Blasting during the battle phase mainly, so this is another card that helps. So for those of you who don't know what she does, Auto Revelation on Vanguard Circle, so when you stride into her, you get to Revelate. And then her second auto skill is Auto Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 3, and choose a face down card from your G-Zone and turn it face up. It can be anything. When a grade 1 or greater card is revealed during your drive check, you may pay the cost. If you do, choose up to the same number of your units as the number of face-up Goddess of Investigation Ishtar in your G-Zone until end of turn. They get power plus 3,000, and then if the card revealed with that drive check has the revelation ability, stand that rear guard, or stand those rear guards. So Muspel can flip up an Ishtar to get us going with Ishtar's effect. So Ishtar has a few things going for her here. One, again, being able to Soul Blast during the battle phase is very good. We can, trigger things like Fenrir or Lading skills and Taros. The deck only runs 8 non-grade 0 revelation units, so getting the restand is generally not going to happen. But when it does, it's nice. But on top of that, she also gives power buffs around, which is great. Revelation is nice to, possibly set up triggers, or see if there's a trigger coming. So overall, that's one of the reasons she's in there. The only downside is it is a little RNG dependent. Again, the Revelation is nice to see if, you can at least trigger the ability once. You can set up around that. But other than that, she's mainly in there for being able to proc your abilities, your sent from soul abilities during battle phase. But she also can help accelerate you to GB8, which is nice. And that's basically what she's got going for. Next up, we run 4 copies of Mythical Destroyer Beast Vanguard. Vanguard is a Generation Break 2 ability, auto, Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 6, and choose a face down card with the same name as him and turn it face up. When he attacks a Vanguard, you may pay the cost, and if you do, until end of turn, he gets auto, Vanguard Circle. At the beginning of your drive step, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, search for any number, and put them on top, and then put the rest on the bottom in any order. And you can order them. So this basically lets you dig for triggers, and it's beautiful. And again, it's another battle phase Soul Blast proc, so that is another thing that we really appreciate. This is generally the stride that you go into more than Ishtar, because being able to both proc all of your battle phase Soul Blast abilities and also dig for triggers is really strong. Next up, we run 1 copy of Mythical Hellsky Beast Fenrir. He has 2 abilities. One is a continuous Generation Break 2. It changes all of the abilities of your Revelation skills instead of the normal Revelation. It's when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, search for up to 1, put it into Soul, and then put the rest back on top in any order. So no resting, none of that. You get to go 2 cards deep instead of 1. And then he has an axe skill which you can use on Vanguard Circle, which is not GB restricted. It is Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 3. You may draw a card. If you do not, you may draw a card. If you do not, put up to 1 card from the top of your deck into your Soul, and then this unit and one of your other units get 3,000 power until end of turn. So this is a good comeback card. If you're really behind, like say you got aggroed out super early, you can dump a lot of your Counterblast and Soul to draw cards. Again, he can help as a setup card. But generally, we run him as as a tech option, more of a tool option. Next up, we have the last of our strides, Goddess of the Settlement, Pallas Athena. This is the GB8. So auto, Vanguard Circle, Generation Break 8. When she attacks a Vanguard, Soul Blast any number of cards, and all of your rear guards get 2,000 power until end of turn for each card Soul Blasted. If you Soul Blast 3 or more cards, this unit gets 10,000 power and critical +1 until end of turn. Again, Ishtar helps to accelerate into this, which is nice. This can just, between all of the restand effects you have, this can just make your rear guards huge and swing in a bunch of times to kill off your opponent. And then on top of this, her gaining a crit is nice, because hopefully you're hoping during the late game your opponent doesn't have the PG to stop it. If they do, it's whatever. But she's your big finisher. And now, under the G-Guards, we run 2 copies of Goddess of the 7 Colors Iris, and 2 copies of Ultimate Regalia of Affection Ire. Iris is when placed on Guardian Circle, choose up to 3 cards from your drop zone, put them into your soul, and if 3 cards are placed, she gets shield plus 5,000 until the end of the battle. So that's nice. You know, there's another way. This was the original way of if you had cards in your hand that you wanted into your soul, you would just guard with them and then shove them back into soul with Iris. And then Ultimate Regalia of Affection Ire. It's similar to Iris. It's when she's placed, you choose up to 4 cards from your drop zone with differing grades, and put them into your soul. If you put 2 or more, she gets shield plus 5,000, and then if you put 4, she gets shield plus 10,000, so she can be up to 30k shield. And again, this is another way to get cards from your hand or your drop zone that you want into your soul. So that's the deck, guys. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Any suggestions, any text that you would run would be greatly appreciated. I hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully I'll be putting out a few more deck profiles in the future. So until then, I will catch you guys next time. Peace.